Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys are doing well. Today, I want to share some of my experience working at physical labor jobs. Starting at February, I decided to take on two jobs. One at Rubio's, which is a coastal Mexican grill where they serve tacos, burritos, salad, bowls, you name it. They've got it all. And another at a burger restaurant called Islands. And throughout my 6 month, I've gained quite a lot of experience as well as some valuable insights I want to share with you guys. But first, let me walk you guys through our kind of regular shift inside the kitchen. So let's roll some footage. At Rubio's, my main job was to meal prep. So this consisted of preparing guac, fresca, white sauce, salsa, mahi, salmon, and a bunch of other sauces as well as food. And afterwards, this took majority of the time, but afterwards I would go to the back of the kitchen where I would do the dishes as well as take out the trash. And at Islands, I would solely focus on taking out the trash and doing dishwashing, as you guys could see from the clips. But those were my main two kind of jobs. Within Islands, I really wanted to work in front of the house. The goal at front of the house is to become a waiter or a bartender, but I didn't have that luxury because there was so much demand for those positions. And the goal at back of the house is to become a cook because the pay is much larger. But I didn't also have this luxury because of the limited time that I was able to work. But that was kind of like the day to day, and now let's get into our presentation. As always, we gotta do a presentation, so I prepped up some insights, and I hope you guys enjoy. Physical labor lessons. Here, the table of contents. We're going to be discussing the experience, which we already have, going over some lessons for work, as well as more lessons, and we're going to be doing a conclusion by talking about how to remain irreplaceable, as well as talking about a little bit about what McKinsey recommends. So we already kind of discussed the day-to-day duties. At Rubio's, I was in charge of meal prep, and at Islands, I was mainly in charge of doing the dishes, as well as taking out the trash. So, the lessons. Number one, it's very, very easy to get comfortable. On Sunday, I'd work a morning shift at Rubio's, and right afterwards, I'd go to Islands for an evening shift. But as weeks went by, I kind of realized how mundane these tasks were: preparing the food, washing dishes, taking out the trash, and just repeating this whole process. And despite the mundaneness, I was adapting to this lifestyle and found it comforting. This revealed how easy my mind was at accepting mediocrity, and also kind of like the importance to never be satisfied. I think there's true value to constantly practicing your desires, but also being aware of them so you keep them in check. And all around me, there were countless of people, coworkers, who were getting sucked into kind of like the rat race, which is a way of life where one gets caught up in a competitive struggle for wealth or power. And I kind of saw this within just the environment, and I could see how easily I myself could get sucked into this lifestyle. And that was a little bit terrifying. Although some may enjoy working in a restaurant, I was really afraid of visualizing my life in here, as there weren't really growth opportunities, along with how easily replaceable I was. Number two, there's a hierarchy in all firms, and beggars can't be choosers. Within all corporations, there's a hierarchy which you must conform to. Even in restaurants, there's a power dynamic in which the employees have to obey the owner's orders as well as their tasks. This hierarchy is created to organize employees' labor as well as efficiency, and you're paid in exchange for conforming, kind of accepting the standards. And if you're on the bottom of the hierarchy, you're kind of deemed less important and subject to the owner's choice. For example, I wasn't really able to choose my own hours relative to, let's say, another position. So a cook, for example, they had more authority, they were more important and had more hours, whereas I, just an entry level, wasn't guaranteed those hours. So that kind of shows you that there's even hierarchies, and if you aren't important, or if you're not kind of able to demonstrate your skill set, then you could easily be replaced or not necessary. And number 3, living the real world is really hard. From scrubbing utensils, pans, cutting boards, and all sorts of other things, your hands will be weary, your body will feel the pain right after your shift is done, or just even within it. For me, I felt mentally exhausted as well as just very unproductive. We could kind of talk about maybe the feasibility of automation, but I really felt like a robot, and I wasn't being intellectually stimulated, which I feel very purposeful if I am challenged in that aspect. But physical labor, just I wasn't, it was really hard for me to find the value at that spot. It's only in hindsight that I'm able to kind of recognize, but they're very, for me, very limited growth opportunities. And if you really have no kind of educational experience, and this was kind of the path that you kind of start on, I feel like it's not feasible in the long run. There are no, as I stated, like growth opportunities. Maybe you could climb the ladder within the restaurant industry or learn management, but for me, this wasn't the route I was intrigued in. And I'm glad that I had that insight. And this kind of leads us to the next slide, which is it possible to make a living on minimum wage? According to BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, around 1.5% of hourly paid workers, which is around 1.1 million workers, were earning federal minimum wage or less. That's $7.5, I believe. And this remains well below the percentage of 13.4% at 1979. And according to BLS, minimum wage workers usually tend to be very young. These young workers under the age of 25 accounted for 48% of those who were paid federal minimum wage or less. So the likelihood of an average Joe making a living in America is very extremely low. But is it possible? Let's say in California. Let's see if it's possible. So the minimum wage in California as of 2022 is $15. And I was making around 16.6 at Rubio's, including tips, and at Islands, I was making 15.5, so a little bit above minimum wage. But let's say that I took $15, which is the bare minimum. And according to Bureau of Economic Analysis, the annual average cost of living in California is $46,636. And this is by adding all of this up. Housing and utilities, healthcare, food and beverages, gas and energy goods, as well as all other personal expenditures. So I use this kind of as a baseline to do our calculation. Given that total income tax equates for around 20%, 20% including federal, state, and FICA, we would need to make around $55,964. Because $55,964 times 0.2, and then if you subtract that, you get $46,636, which is the cost of living. So if I make $15 an hour, it would take me roughly around 3,730 hours a year just to live here. And now, although we are given 8,760 years within a year, the average working hours is 2,080, which is around 40 hours per week. But I wouldn't be working 2,080 hours. I would be working 3,730. This is the minimum threshold. This means that I have to work 10.3 hours every single day for 52 weeks straight with no breaks. However, I really doubt that this is sustainable nor feasible for the most people unless they radically just decrease their category spending. Like, of course, the average Californian, I think, spends a lot more in personal expenditures as well as housing and healthcare. But let's say we completely decrease this by living with roommates, having no coverage, and just not having any personal expenditures, literally living life on the edge or the bare minimum, maybe it's possible. But I'm not sure if it's sustainable. So I would say living on minimum wage, is it possible? I would say yes. I haven't tried it, but I don't think it's sustainable. And I don't think anybody should be living on minimum wage. And think due to looking at kind of like the BLS data, it's also seen that not a lot of people, it's majority of the people who are making minimum wage are underage, not underage, but young workers under the age of 25. And now I kind of wanted to share a little more insight within the current labor market. So, according to BLS, again, accommodation and food services industry had a turnover rate of 86.3. So what does this really mean? This means that if a restaurant has 100 people on staff, 86 people have left the team in a single month. That's what it means. So the turnover rates are extremely high. According to another article from Business Insider, fast food restaurants in particular had a turnover rate of 144%. That's quite a lot of people. That's so if I have, let's say, 100 people on staff, there would be 144 people which have left the team in a single month. That's quite a lot, isn't it? And in April of 2022, 4.4 million Americans put their resignation letters according to Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's a lot of people. Quitting has become kind of like a new norm that employers are adjusting to. And I'm assuming there's a lot of factors to this, but a big one is probably the pandemic as well as the labor shortage. Because there's a lot of job openings that happen, that just means that there are more opportunities for workers. So it could be lucrative that you quit and kind of pursue those better opportunities. If there's more job openings, labor costs are also rising, and there are more opportunities to find a job that better suits the employee. So that's the reasoning behind it. And in a tighter market, firms are willing to also increase pay and forego their profits. This would be beneficial if the employee is able to provide skill sets which are actual assets to the company. However, this isn't really what's happening currently. According to Business Insider, quote, California's state Senate passed AB 257, the Fast Recovery Act, to create a 10-person council made up of fast food workers, restaurant representatives, and government officials that would have authority to establish minimum wage and standards on conditions for worker health and safety. The council would have authority over restaurant chains that have over 100 locations nationally, like McDonald's does, and can raise the fast food industry's minimum wage to $22 an hour. Currently, California's wage floor is $15, and it will raise to $15.5 in 2023. This can be detrimental. Oh, I forgot to unquote. This could be really detrimental because it could increase the cost of food and fast food restaurants while food at other places are already really high due to inflation. In addition, this will also kind of raise the costs of mom and pop restaurants who are competing for employees. Overall, this bill will affect hundreds, millions of consumers and kind of contribute to the inflation we're currently having. So, what can we do? What do you need to do? In the labor market, labor resources are exchanged for work. The consumer is doing the supplying to fulfill the business's desires to produce goods and services. Skills are what kind of drives labor productivity. This has a strong link to the national economic performance, and also in a recession, higher skilled laborers are more likely to stay employed and have higher earning prospects. This kind of reinforces the role that skills play within the probability of employment. So it's super important to invest in yourself. And the key to remaining irreplaceable is to build skill sets. And I got this from McKinsey research. According to McKinsey Global Institute, it inferred that demand for technological, social, and emotional and higher cognitive skills will grow as automation, AI, and robotics take hold. And within this research, they tested 18,000 people from 15 different countries, and they found that high incomes were strongly associated with proficiency in the 4 skill groups, which is listed on the presentation: understanding digital systems, software use and development, planning and ways of working, as well as communication. The first 2 skills fall within the digital category, as well as the latter 2 deal with the cognitive category. So that's all I got for you guys, and I'd like to end with a quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald. He found something that he wanted, had always wanted, and always would want. Not to be admired as he had feared. Not to be loved as he had made himself believe. But to be necessary to people, to be indispensable. Very few things matter, and nothing matters very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. I really had a lot of fun kind of looking at the labor market, getting more insights about the current world, the recession, as well as the upcoming uncertainties that we're going to be met with, and also the importance of knowledge work and kind of figuring out how you could gather skill sets and figure out ways to becoming valuable to society, as it rewards you very handsomely for your efforts. So yeah, hope this was insightful, and hope you guys also have a wonderful, prosperous day. Peace.